what I thought we would talk about today is Thich Nhat Hanh's term that he coined. It's called interbeing. I love this word interbeing that he coined because it's so fundamental to these practices of yoga and meditation, right? Yoga can be loosely translated to mean unity, right? And this practice is intended for meditation. So I thought I would just start off by reading this little quote that explains how he came to coin this term and what it means. So he says, about 30 years ago, so the mind tends to play this funny trick, and even in our own language, there tends to be ourselves and the world outside. And ourself stops at our skin, right? Is kind of how we have created this idea in our mind, right? This is me, and there's the world outside of me. But you are very interdependent, and the world is actually very interdependent on you because you do not exist in a vacuum, right? There's no reality where there is just you. Right? There's always forces being played on you and you playing on them. And so your life has this exchange, right, between you and the world outside of you. And so I have two sort of metaphors that I like to use when explaining this concept within meditation, right? And the first is that of aspen trees. So those of us from Colorado understand that aspen trees are actually one of the biggest organisms in the world. And while they look like different units, right, you've got one tree here and another tree and another tree, underneath, all of their roots are actually interconnected. And so while we perceive them as individual units, they are actually one thing, right? And so too, life is a little bit like this, right? So that's more of a very literal metaphor of explaining interbeing, right? This one thing that we perceive as one is actually very physically one thing, right? But there's also, I like to use more of an abstract metaphor, which is that of a rainbow, okay? So for a rainbow to exist, there has to be a few things. There has to be light streaming in at a particular angle. There has to be water particles in the sky. And then beyond that, there has to be a viewer, and a particular type of viewer that can see these certain colors. A rainbow is a phenomena, right? Phenomena, you know. So it's a phenomena, and that means that these experiences, so not just units of physical matter, but this experience is interdependent on other experiences. For a rainbow to exist, you have to exist, right? Because it is a visual phenomenon. Interbeing is a simple way of explaining that all things are connected, right? And that all experiences are connected in the same way that a rainbow occurs. All of our experiences are connected. Your life is phenomenal. It's phenomenal in that it is amazing, right? But also in that all of these unique experiences had to come together to create you and the world that you are a part of and the universe that you are a part of. And you are not separate from that. You're very, very connected to that. Okay. So what does this have to do with my self-care? What does this have to do with my meditation practice? Okay, it's a very beautiful idea that we have this sort of interconnectedness, this sort of butterfly effect, this sort of, unity in our existence, right? I don't exist in a vacuum. I exist in the world, right? But what does that have to do with my meditation? And what does that have to do with my mind and my self-care? How can this idea change my perspective? And I think that this matters so much to me and my own perspective, and maybe perhaps after class, yours, because of the meaning that we add to our lives, right? So I feel a great deal of time, especially people who meditate, have moments of existential crises. Who am I? What am I? What is this life, right? We ask these sort of deeper questions of ourselves. What is going on, right? And the answers are many, many unknowns. However, we can know and trust, because of our interbeing, that our presence has purpose, right? My presence has purpose, and it has meaning to all of the other things that I consider to be not me. And that maybe they actually are a little, because we are so interconnected, that I am this experience. I am both me, my experience of the world outside of me, right? And all the little things that I can't possibly comprehend. It has to do with unity. It has to do with grounding you. Because so much of the work that goes on up here is the stories that we create about the meaning of our lives, the meaning that we add to our lives. All the stories that we entertain in our mind about our lives. This one idea, for me at least, tends to relieve me from over-intellectualizing my life and trying to figure out those existential things. Or in the same sense as over-intellectualizing it, it also prevents me from making it superficial, from making my life, the meaning of my life, superficial. The meaning of my life isn't how well I did at work, right? The meaning of my life isn't societal success. The meaning of my life isn't the pressures that I've placed on myself and the things that I must do and accomplish, right? But maybe it's much more simple than that, even if I can't fully comprehend the entirety of it. I don't need to, because if I can just trust in that interbeingness, it helps ground me. It helps ground me in that I am my own being. And my being is necessary, is essential. And because it is necessary and is essential in ways that I can't fully comprehend, that to me is meaningful. My presence has meaning because of that, right? And I don't need to figure out why, because nobody can. But for me, it brings me some comfort and some grounding. When I create too many stories in my mind about what the meaning of my life is supposed to be, I come back to this simple idea of interconnectedness, of beingness, of just being. That my being is natural, it is essential and fundamental to the bigger picture that I can't fully intellectualize or comprehend. And I don't need to. I can just be with that, and I am a part of that flow. I'm a part of that unity. I'm a part of something bigger naturally, without having to become that. I already am. And that doesn't need to be metaphysical. It doesn't need to be religious. But I think that meaning is a lot more peaceful, mentally, physically, in your own existence, than a lot of the stories that we play in our thoughts, right? The stories that we play out in our minds, right? And so that's why interbeing is so fundamental to a lot of meditation and Zen practices. So, the meditation that I thought we would do on this concept is just a very simple breathing meditation. So, we'll settle into our meditative space. But what I want you to do in your meditation is, as you breathe in, focus on the space at the top of the breath and at the bottom of the breath. As the inhale becomes the exhale, and the exhale becomes the inhale, okay? And the reason the breath is very symbolic or indicative of interbeing is because you are breathing in the space around you, your experience. You're breathing in this here and now. It reminds you that you are this experience. I'm not just me. I don't just stop in my skin. And beyond that, when I breathe out, I give back to the world, right? My breath is essential to the plants, right? Right? The world outside of me is a part of me, and I'm a part of it, right? And that connection moves through me. And you see it in the symbolic way that the inhale and the exhale become one and are necessary to each other, but also to in the world outside of you and the world inside of me starts to mesh, and that veil that I've created mentally can start to dissipate. Thank you so much for meditating with me. Thank you for being here. It means the world to me, far more than you will know.